Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Podcasting to you from my field here in beautiful rural Ireland. I'm Trev, Downey, and this is the Anfield Index podcast, episode number 349. 9. I've done it already, Lisa Marie. Which number is it?
It is episode 349 of the Anfield Index podcast.
Thanks to my computer chum there who answers to the name Lisa Marie. As I was saying, it's episode number 349. There's no way we're editing that out. And I am joined by Lisa Marie Hanahan, and only Lisa Marie Hanahan, for this unusual two-person edition of the Anfield Index podcast. We have an idea for a show, which is basically us talking about our various gripes about football, which, considering we are the two sort of happy, clappy types on the podcast, if not on the network, should be a bit of crack, I would have thought. I don't know how seriously we're going to take it, but it'll be quite interesting to get into that. But before we do anything, there is one Liverpool story we want to cover. I have a little clip to get us started, but let me start in the most appropriate and polite fashion by saying hello to Lisa Marie and asking how you are.
Hello, Trev. Happy that it's, what is it, the Terrible Two today on the podcast?
The Terrible Twos, yeah.
The Terrible Two. Pretty good for a Sunday in December when I've got 100 different things going on, but yeah. So just happy to be here as always.
Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to do it today, because I couldn't do it on Friday because one of my numerous family things occurred, and it's great. I know you preferred the idea of doing it on Friday, and it's our scheduled day, so I do appreciate you being able to pivot, because unfortunately we've got Cam, who's not great and actually had some family stuff, Carl, who was also indisposed, as was Guy, so it was there would be no show if you hadn't managed to find the gap in the schedule, so I do appreciate it.
Oh, come on, you wouldn't have just started recording and just talked nonsense for 30-40 minutes to yourself?
Listen, I do that on a whole other show. When it comes to Liverpool, that is the sole domain of Dave Hendrick. That's true. It's the Hendrick zone, and I'm not going to step in there and do my thing in case it pales into insignificance compared to his. I got told during the week, actually, in relation to something else, Lisa Marie, you'll appreciate this. It was actually after the show I did with Dan and Phil Barter about the departures from the backroom staff.
Right.
And it was a show that was quite contentious, because a lot of people really took the hump at the idea of the lads putting forward the fact that this might be a really important aspect of the club, and talking about Dan specifically got it in the neck for his theories about what might be happening behind the scenes. And I just thought it was really weird, because podcasts are a place where you're supposed to air opinions. And it broke down into a conversation with one or two people about what do you want from a podcast. And some of these guys were, I mean, one lad said he wanted something like, it was basically like truth and accurate reporting of facts and all that. And I was like, well, what we aspire to do. But
Right.
the truth is our truthful feelings about stuff based on information. We're not like putting ourselves up as the and we never have. This is what I find hilarious about it. People seem to have a
Yeah.
sniffy attitude about Anfield Index as people who put themselves forward as the expert of experts. No, we just happen to talk to people who are very highly qualified who offer their opinions, which I would have thought was a good thing. But here's the thing. One man said, good friend of the show, Damo, hopefully you're listening, Damo, that what he likes in a podcast is the Dave Hendrick rants. He also
Oh, I
said
love a Dave
something.
Hendrick rant.
Yeah. So I mean, this is I can't start going marching into the Dave zone when it comes to football. It had crossed my mind one week there where I was like pretty much like this week. I was looking like it was just going to be me or no show, and I just thought I just can't do it. So I wanted to talk to you briefly about a Liverpool story that's coming up, but I don't know what sort of a week you've had, Lisa Marie, but mine has been. Like it's suffice to say, it's been a really sort of pain in the arse week in a pretty bad run of months in terms of just bullshit to be dealing with. And you find yourself in these times, and I just thought this would be nice for the feel of our show today, where we're grumbling, and mostly it's the two of us being, trying to talk Cam and Carl and Guy down off whatever precipice they're on, so I just thought that this might be a good clip because this is a very, very dark, and not dark, but very, very interesting clip from a movie called There Will Be Blood, and
Yeah.
it is Daniel Plainview, and he's talking to his so-called long lost returned brother, who ends up being a charlatan. Sorry for the spoiler. And he is talking about how he feels about people in general. Now, it's about 3 minutes, but I think it's worth it. And I found myself watching this today because I went looking for it. Because I said, do you know how I feel about people on the back of stuff I've been reading online? I'm having a tough time, and every so often you go to Twitter for a bit of crack. All the best with that, lad. All the best with that. There is no crack to be had except amongst the very, very few. Even when you curate your timeline like I do, you get all this bullshit retweeted onto it. So I was feeling very misanthropic, and I felt like my feelings were quite mirrored by old Dan here. So let's have a listen.
Why did you leave? I know you didn't get on with her father. I worked for Geological Survey and went to Kansas. I couldn't stay there. Just couldn't. I don't like to explain myself. Are you an angry man, Henry? About what? Are you envious? Do you get envious? I don't think so, no. I have a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I hate most people. That part of me is gone. Working and not succeeding. All my failures has left me. I just don't care. Well, if it's in me, it's in you. There are times when I look at people and I see nothing worth liking. I want to earn enough money I can get away from everyone. What will you do about your boy? I don't know. Maybe it'll change. Has your sound come back to you? I don't know. Maybe no one knows that. Doctor might not know that. Where's his mother? don't want to talk about those things. I see the worst in people, Henry. I don't need to look past seeing them to get all I need. I've built up my hatreds over the years, little by little. Having you here gives me a second breath. I can't keep doing this on my own. With these
people. That was darker than I thought, listen, Ray. So,
just the way he says people.
Oh, at the end, it's brilliant. Like, actually, it goes on a little bit, but I thought that was an apt cutting point. And at some stage, I absolutely will respond to a question of yours by, I don't talk about those things or something. I don't want to talk about those things.
I've seen that movie, but it was only once, and it was a while ago. I'm going to have to go back and try to find it somewhere and watch it again.
Oh, God, do. Absolutely.
As I said, I've seen it. But, I was just thinking as he was talking, I've seen Gangs of New York multiple times. Yeah. And there's some similarity in the characters, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive fan of the guy. I know.
Amazing.
I think a lot of people were a bit down on his performance in Gangs, like, that was a bit scenery chewing kind of stuff. But I'm all in. What I like about it is he is too. That's obviously his famous thing. And you're right. They're both very intense. There's a similarity, of course, in the voice there as well, because it's him, but also in the timbre.
I think it was the voice. That's what kind of struck me.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AIPRO10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Yeah. The reason I'm saying do watch it because I enjoyed it so much more second time around. If that makes sense, there's a lot.
No, it does absolutely make sense.
There's a lot to milk out of that. Now, speaking of, and pointing the direction the wagon in the direction of the football, I did ask you to have a quick look at a story that's been breaking today, as far as I can see. It's an article by David Lynch. It's in the Sporting News, as far as I can see, and he is announcing an exclusive about a joint Saudi-Qatari consortium who have emerged as a strong early contender to buy Liverpool. Investors from the two Gulf states, says Lynch, have agreed to join forces so as to avoid becoming embroiled in a bidding war for ownership of the six-time European champions. It has a kind of a sniff of reality to it because of that last point there, that this sort of the joining up together might just blow competition out of the water, because who wants to go up against not one but two of the Gulf states in terms of a competition for anything when it comes to spending money. He continues, they are preparing an initial bid in the region of 3.2 billion. And their vast shared wealth puts them in a commanding position as they look to complete an Anfield takeover. Although the two parties involved are described as private investors, strong links to the respective states inevitably exist. Sources close to the bid, who are they, Lisa Marie, are confident those relationships would withstand sufficient scrutiny to be signed off by the FA. That's their fit and proper persons malarkey, particularly in light of the recent takeover of Newcastle United by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which, if we recall, had to satisfy the FA, at least publicly, and in the shapes they were throwing publicly, that it was not the state, but rather this fund that were buying the club. And then that, of course, brings us to have a look at other state-run Qatar sports investment group, which took charge of PSG back in 2011, and we've seen the things they've done. Lynch mentions the 222 million euro bid for Neymar, the 180 million euro for Mbappe when he was still a child. And he mentions the 305 million investment by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which you just mentioned there, in taking over Newcastle. Now, look, there will be all sorts of hand-wringing, no doubt, Lisa Marie. There will be all sorts of posturing I've seen already about, well, if this happens, then that. We're not going to get into that because we don't know how real this is, but it is a very, very interesting, and it has a whiff of reality to it in terms of the guy who's writing it is someone who has traditionally been well connected. What do you make of this, just on initial impressions?
I'd really rather they didn't, but yeah, I mean, what was it that I initially said? It was something along the lines of very,
yeah,
yes, so eloquent. Yeah, I mean, it just kind of gives you that feeling in the pit of your stomach, doesn't it? It's just like, ooh, I don't know. I mean, this goes along the lines of, I can rant and rave and about it, but in the end of the day, I guess, is my voice going to change anything? No. Now, I mean, perhaps if Liverpool supporters are able to come together in a, organized and meaningful type way to be like, no, this is not what we want, that potentially, could make a difference in the fact that, this is, as much as we would like all the money in the world, we don't want this money in the world, if that makes sense. So, but I mean, you feel that way. I mean, and not to speak for you, Trev, and I feel that way, but there may be plenty of fans that just want to see us win and they don't care how. So I don't know.
I would say it's probably the majority of fans, because when you got to take in the size of the global, fan base.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also, let's not read too much into people taking stands domestically either, because there will be people who will just absolutely do what you said and say, well, look, if City can do it, Newcastle can do it, why should we be left behind? And that rationalization will be the end of it for them. And that's, like I say, I'm not interested in getting into the depths of why or why not, but like, you're right to point that out, because that will very much be the case. So like, myself and Lisa Marie here are not pontificating one way or the other. We're just saying it's a very interesting story. It seems to have more than a whiff of substance to it. So I would imagine very much watch this space. We wanted to mention it because we're, I think, the only show going out today, and it has just broken in the last few hours. So that is just to flag it up. We will allow other people to do the more fact-based analysis as those facts emerge, if there are in fact any there. We'll allow other people to do the hand-wringing moral discussions as that time emerges, if it needs to, if this is a thing that will happen. Until it does, I would not waste energy on that kind of discussion myself, because it's all whys and wherefores and what ifs. So we just wanted to flag it up between us. Now, I said the gist of today's show, coming from that, sort of coming from a suggestion by you and my general misanthropic feelings about the world in general.
Oh, sure, blame me.
Well, what I say is,
it was me though.
what I say is you triggered the darker thought in me, because I think it is an interesting thing for us to have a look at a couple of things that perhaps we don't particularly enjoy about the game, because we do spend our time talking about the things that we do, and I have at least two topics I want to chat about myself, because for me, the two things that I would like to have a little bit of a gripe about, the two big topics, are the online fan experience, and the other one is VAR. And I'm not, these are not, so don't stop rolling your eyes. I can see, not you, Lisa Marie. I can see you, listener. I can see you rolling your eyes. I just want to, it's not, we're not going to relitigate whether or not VAR should be in the game. That's not my point. There are aspects of it that I want to talk about. They're the two bugbears that I thought I'd bring to the table. Now, you have a particularly interesting one, which may have had some inspiration in a family member's suggestions, and I haven't a clue what your second one is. So what two topics were you going to bring to the table?
Okay, so the first one is something that Mr. H has been wanting me to work into the show for a couple of months now. And it is a suggestion of his as how players who, simulate falls or dives or whatever in order to get penalties should be treated when they're called out on their behavior. So that's one. And then the second one is, I was just going to kind of share a story from a game that we went to that was really my first kind of exposure to the Premier League. It was one of the summer games, and just something kind of along the fan experience there. So
okay, right. I like this. This is dovetailing nicely. So I'll get the ball rolling, and then we'll go to your husband inspired gripe next. So let's start by addressing the elephant in the room, which is that we wouldn't know each other or be talking to each other or doing this show if it was not for the fantastically positive aspect of being an online fan and the fan media experience. Like I say, a little bit soured lately by some of the things I see people saying, not necessarily about me. That kind of thing I can put in a box, or I can deal with it myself. But when I see generalizations about people who I consider to be really good at what they do, and a channel in general, that rubs me the wrong way, and I get kind of stabby. I want to do something about it. I want to address it, and there's never a platform, and you get dragged down to the level of these
people.
People, as Dan would say. That's exactly it. Yeah, people. You just there's no way to win there, because when you start arguing with stupid, you become stupid. That's been my experience of. I tried it there 2 weeks ago. I woke up on Saturday morning to some imbecile troll who was sneering at something that I'd said, and he could barely string a sentence together, and I was just sort of playfully saying, "What's your problem, wee man? Like, talk to me properly. Like, who hurt you? What do you need to talk about? Like, let's work through this together."
Let's work through this.
Yeah, he just kept. He became more and more absolutely sanctimonious and certain in his stupidity as he went. It was remarkable to watch. He was doing things like saying pretty hateful things about me, and when I called him out on some stuff that he had pinned to his Twitter profile, he couldn't manage to synthesize the two things together, and it was a huge waste of my time. Lisa Marie, is my point. There is no way to talk to humans like that. You can't save them from their own stupidity. They're gone. They're lost to us. I've felt that a lot lately.
There's a saying around here. And maybe it carries internationally. I don't know, but you can't fix stupid.
Yeah, no, that really works. that really works. And you see, I am, by dint, I suppose, of my profession, certainly, and of my personality, I'm the kind of person who does try to see past the initial display of ignorance and try to pull people back into the light. I'm not saying I'm some sort of visionary. I'm just saying, God love you, person X. You are a benighted soul, and I don't like to see you out there. So I have a little bit of patience for that type of thing, and not in a condescending way. Far from it. I'm not saying my opinions are better than others, but I don't ever do online hatred. I don't understand it. I think it's pathetic in ways that I can't understand. I'm not
think it's cowardly. In my
it is cowardly, yeah.
That is my opinion, and people can do with it what they wish. But if it's very easy to sit behind a computer screen or whatever and say something, but would you say, I have honestly adapted, and I've tried to teach my own children the same. Don't put anything online or say anything about anyone online or in an email even or whatever that you wouldn't say to their face.
Absolutely. I mean, I in my own day-to-day experience had a fantastic anecdote recently where somebody should have just kept their mouth shut, and it has not gone well for them, because they didn't. And it's kind of like that thing where, when you're in your car and you can say, you see people and they're literally losing their minds in their car. I'll admit to casual damning of individuals who may have done something stupid on the road. But would I say that to the person's face in real life? Would they? It's you're in your little cocoon there. But I don't understand the kind of mindset. And somebody pointed this out to me yesterday. An awful lot of it probably comes from some sort of lack of satisfaction in their own life, and somebody tried to say to me that it was coming from probably a deep-seated place of jealousy or envy, and because I don't do that, that's not an emotion I'm familiar with. I don't have a lot of jealousy in my life. I'm lucky that way. It doesn't plague me or torment me. Friends of mine who are just eaten alive by it. I just see them. It just takes them over, and a certain person is mentioned or certain thing is mentioned, they just become someone different. So I never think about that, but maybe that is the thing, because why else would you be having a little chuckle or a little hate-filled chat talking about people should be done away with, and being incredibly violent in your language about a group of people who you don't have the bravery to tag into your chat? It's quite pathetic. So that is one of the darker aspects of the online experience. I started off by acknowledging that it's brought me so much joy and so many friends, but
including me,
including you. Let the record state.
I'm just saying, if it weren't for Twitter, would we be here right now having this conversation?
This is 100%. So many just genuinely good friends, and people met in real life afterwards, and all that kind of thing. And hopefully, we might actually manage that particular crossover experience too. And it's wonderful. And if you can do it right, if you can manage to do it right, I'm just finding, and maybe it's just me, people are always quite condescending and say, "Well, I don't have any of that. I just be careful who you follow." And I go, yeah, that's pretty shit advice, because I do follow sound people, but sound people can lose their fucking shit. Maybe about politics, and they might say something that's hugely offensive or ignorant, in my opinion. So I've gotten to the habit, at least Marie, of becoming a professional eye roller. I don't engage people when they say objectively idiotic things, like objectively stupid things. Politically speaking, I just roll my eyes and go, he's a nice chap, or she's a nice girl, it's fine, just move on, just don't get annoyed, Trev, just move on. And if I wish other people would do that, but that's what it comes down to. This is the number. What do you do when you see things maybe let's just use me as an example. Maybe I come on, I say something, you go, oh, fucking hell, Trev, that's just stupid. What is your impulse? Is your impulse, I've got to type a response to this, or do you I roll as well? What's your take? What do you...
I roll and scroll on. I mean, if it were something like, I mean, as you said, if it's just a remark or some comment on, a post or whatever, and I'd be like, yeah, I would, I might pause for a minute and then be like, is this worth engaging? No, it really isn't, because it's not. Yeah, I mean, I just kind of scroll on, if you will.
Well, what do you make of this thing that people seem to have, where they just get, to use your verb, this concept of doom scrolling, and whether it be someone who's following a whole lot of climate activists or whatever, or people who are in their deep-seated left or right political spheres, and they just find themselves or
hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by TODD. You know TODD, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Let's take our topic, football. I see people and they're just lost to it. Like they seem to be having the most awful time, just constantly upset. Constantly upset. Now, I'm talking about it as a thing that irks me from time to time, and that I wish I could block out, but I can't fully do it because, like I say, people will retweet stuff onto your timeline, and people will occasionally who are lovely people, will occasionally have moments of silliness or objectively stupid or offensive things that they'll say. So you can't nerf the system. I'm not being a crybaby here. You got to put up with some stuff. That's part of the whole deal, and you wouldn't want it any other way. But you do see people, don't you, who just get lost to it. Like they seem to spend their days online crying, as we'd say around here, about something or other.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I just sometimes have to wonder, do these people not have a job that they need to be at, say, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Family that they need to be engaging with or whatever. I mean, I know that as a demographic, I myself am a bit of an anomaly in the Twitter sphere. There aren't many, women of my age married with children. Yeah, and I'm speaking very general. Obviously there are others, but it's not typical. So yes. But even still, I mean, even if it is, say, a 20-something college student, don't you have a class you're supposed to be at? Don't you have a paper you need to be writing? Don't you,
Yeah. You're right though.
Don't you have some part-time job you should be, you should be at? To me, it's just not healthy, if you will.
It definitely is the people who have a lot of time in their hands, for sure, who are mostly the most active in this. And that listen, someone said something to me years ago, and it was someone who I have a lot of time for, and they said that Twitter really helped them because it's a nice thing when you're lonely. And I just thought that was so touching, and I hadn't thought about it myself because I was in the lucky position of being a bit like you at that stage of my life. I was kind of, I don't have a minute in the day. I've got family commitments left, right, and center. I've got a job, 2 jobs. So the concept of loneliness was something that I was mercifully free of. And I just thought, Jesus, that's something that's quite powerful. It was just a powerful little statement. Like, it can be really, really, it can be a lifeline for folks as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there have been, and I can't think of a specific example at the time, but there's been multiple, stories or incidents, whatever, of people who, were, maybe very lonely, very depressed, very, whatever. And by engaging with either a community or a person or someone online, it has literally saved their lives. And so, I mean, that's kind of what keeps me from wanting to just chuck the whole concept whatsoever, because, not only, you never know, that could be my own self one day in the future, but on the flip side, and what I, truly hope is that my interaction with someone can bring them that positive experience in the future. And not sound all sanctimonious and holier than thou, but you just don't know, what impact you have on people. And all the more reason that, so I have this thing, I've said this for years, and it was, it started as a work thing, is, you get an email about something, some incident related to a project or whatever, and it's just your fear, your initial reaction is to just, shoot back some, angry, bitchy email back. And so my thing has always been like, don't email angry. Don't email angry. Yeah. If it makes you, and sometimes it makes you feel better to type out the angry, bitchy email. Make sure there's no, you don't accidentally send it. But, type it all out, step away, and then you can even come back and turn that email into the more appropriate and positive way to respond to the situation, and again, this is personal experience, but I mean, oftentimes it seems like those emails would come in like late in the afternoon, say 4:30, and it'd be like, you know what, I'm not responding to this right now. I will respond to this in the morning where I have some distance from it. So it's kind of the same thing online. If there is something that just absolutely infuriates you and you want to just, and I think that's what happens, is people don't take that pause, even just that 5-10 second pause before they just type out a response. And it's like, just deep breath, take a minute, and, is what you're putting back out into Twitter or whatever, is it something that, again, you would say to someone's face, and is it something that, that you're willing to engage in a back and forth debate on? And if it's not, then just don't do it. But I know I sound very sanctimonious and like such a mother right now, and I will just stop.
Listen, I think it's solid advice, and it's really interesting you mentioned that, because my equivalent of your pause, don't email angry is, you should see, if anyone was to get a little look into my unsent tweets, they would think I was a rage beast, which on a level that Dave Hendrick could only dream of. I mean, I'm just like, it's full of these like, listen, and another fucking thing, and then I just go, okay, I've done it. Like you say, you typed it out, and you just go, no, I'm not going to send that. I am not going to send that, because that's just that's not going to help anybody. And you know what's interesting? That thing you said, and to bring it back to a kind of wholesome conclusion, you don't know when on a certain day you might, by the dint of the fact that you're lucky enough to have a certain amount of people who are interested in what you say or listen to your show or whatever, you don't know what effect that might have in a positive way. And it's not always easy. God knows, look at my unsent tweets. It's not always easy, but if you can do it, I think your advice is dead right. We really should just try to at least take that breath, roll your eyes, and like you said, scroll on. And we will scroll on to the second of our topics, which is your one via Mr. H, which is about player behavior when it comes to feigning or whatever injury. So just tease it out for me, because I'm very interested in this one.
Okay, so this is something that he has been saying as we have been watching games for, all right, certainly all of this season. He may have even brought it up initially back, in the spring or whatever at some point last season. But it drives him. Well, first of all, any of the, feigning injury or, just blatant diving or whatever always, drives him crazy. And it drives me crazy too. It's like, come on, get over yourself. But he thinks that there should be a new rule instigated that says, let's say said player grabs their right ankle and falls over, like they've been kicked in that right ankle. And, so maybe there's a VAR check or something. And it turns out, well, no, they weren't kicked in their right ankle, but they were maybe not maliciously, but, someone did hit their left leg or ankle. So they've gone down holding the absolute opposite side of where, yes, they may have received some sort of injury. So his solution is that, so not only the yellow card or whatever that they should receive for simulation is, in addition to that, the opposing team should, instead of a penalty kick, should be allowed to kick that player in the place where they faked their injury.
This is biblical.
Perhaps
this is Old
a little
Testament
violent,
stuff.
not lying. Especially, there may need to be some, you may have to come up with a different rule if it's a head, because, but he goes, I think that would solve it.
Can I ask, is Mr. H a prototypical American dude who looks at soccer in a way which is quite he looks down his nose at the sport? Because so many of the podcasts I listen to are hosted by Yanks, and not many of them have that crossover with sport. But when they do, most of these American guys are just like, soccer. Well, it seems to be this.
Yes. Okay, 20 years ago, absolutely. I mean, like when we were first dating and then married, he used to refer to soccer. See, I'm just going to say it that way, and it was because it was soccer, as a commie sport. And of course, he mostly did this to annoy my father.
A commie sport.
A commie sport, which is just, and I mean, and again, where he grew up, I mean, and okay, he played baseball and he played American football.
Yeah.
And yeah. So, but as his own children have played the game, as he has started watching the game, he has developed a respect for the different type of athleticism, that is necessary for the sport, as opposed to, say, baseball or American football or whatever. Now, but what does drive him absolutely insane is the diving and, the feigning of injury. That drives him bonkers.
As an Irishman, I have a real empathy with this, because all of my family, the area in which I grew up, where I'm still living, how's about that for a carbon footprint, lads? I have, I'm surrounded by GAA supporting people. Our club was very successful when I was a kid. Our county was hugely successful in winning All Irelands when I was a kid, and so I grew up in this hotbed of Gaelic football. And
which
a little
I still
bit
don't
like
understand,
you said,
by the way.
you'll love it if you get to watch a game. A little bit like what you said with American football, where those guys go out and it's war, it's attrition, it can be violent, and it's incredibly explosive, and those guys are getting hit. Yes. Gaelic football is so much more of a contact sport than English league football is. And so I've grown up with that attitude of lads looking down their nose at soccer and soccer players as being sort of, fragile prima donnas. And, it's hilarious because the team I grew up supporting had individuals like Graham Souness going around like tackling lads at knee height for the crack, and that the culture of football that was around when I was a kid. Like I'm talking football as in Liverpool. I mean, you're talking about an era where I watched a great little reminder there of a clip there of an English league manager, and he was talking about this thing called the reducer, which was something that, he had a name that he had patented for the early tackle, which an opposition hard man will put in on the hard man of the opposing team to, inverted commas, let him know that he's there. So these things used to happen so much more. Like, and even still,
was that like leave a bit on him kind of mentality?
Leave a bit on him, that type of thing, right? Yeah, that's the type of thing. But it was vicious. And when I played as a kid, you would get kicked, and if you were playing in an adult
Let me
match,
tell you, I got into an argument with the high school football coach when I was in high school about, how soccer was in a lot of ways more dangerous sport than American football. And my argument was, American football players, they're wearing the helmets, they're wearing the various pads and things to protect them. Soccer players have shin guards. That's it.
Yeah.
And I have seen far more brutal soccer injuries. And I'm just saying it to draw the line between American football and soccer, or football. Far uglier injuries than I have. And now, I mean, there can be some very, very horrible injuries, in American football. Don't get me wrong. But my own brother, who played quite a bit, actually almost lost a kidney due to, he was playing goalie at the time, and opposition player came up. He jumped up. My brother jumped up for the save. The opposition player kind of jumped up trying to, head it in and kneed my brother in the back. Well, he actually kneed him hard enough in the got his kidney that it crushed his kidney between, this guy's knee and his spine. He was in the hospital for 4 days. And the only reason they didn't take his kidney was because he was 14 years old. So anyway, so yeah. So soccer, or English Premier Football, or whatever we want to call it, can be very, very brutal. And now I know not so much now as, as you said, years ago, there's, been some, I guess, change to the rules and some things to put in place, to help try to mitigate some of those injuries. But yeah, anyway.
I suppose the reason I bring it up is because it's very easy to go down that route of, my neighbours and next door neighbours and Gaelic football teammates and coaches used to say, in that disparaging way, talking about lads throwing themselves around the place on pitches and stuff and rolling around. And that was, I suppose, in the early days when you were getting that kind of South American influence coming into the Premier League and stuff like that. And now, as you say, it's very much a thing. And I must admit, I think if I was to come to the game as a newbie, I don't know if I would laugh. If you came across a particularly bad example of a game in which a lot of that was happening, I don't know if it would take with me, because that would really, really wind me up. As it is now, like I'm a lifer. I have this terrible feeling that you are now too. So you're just in. You're just in.
Y'all have sucked me in.
Yeah, you're just in, and so these are one of the things that you put up with. So I'm glad you brought that one up, because it is something that's a little bit of a blight on the game for sure, without the whole pontificating about we don't like that kind of thing. I'll never be that guy. The whole Luis Suarez handling the ball on the line in the previous World Cup, I'm all for that kind of thing. Cheat away, that's fine. And if you want to throw yourself in the ground, that's fine. But once those actions are punished appropriately, that's absolutely fine by me as well. It's not a thing I can relate to. I wouldn't want to do it. I would feel like a complete idiot doing it, I have to say. I tried a couple of times to buy a penalty when I was 17 years of age. I left a trailing leg and I just got told to get up. It was, Obviously, I hadn't earned my thespian chops at that stage.
I was going to
Lisa
say
Marie,
you just hadn't developed the proper
yeah,
acting
no, I guess
skills.
not. I guess
Obviously.
not. I guess not. I'm going to have to work on that. Throw myself down the stairs at work and see what happens. So we're going to move to our third topic now, so that we can keep this show in between the hedges in terms of time. And that one is my second one, which, I mean, we're not going to spend too long on, but I want to speak about one aspect of it. VAR, it looks like it's here to stay. I don't think there's any budging it at this stage. It is dealt with in a way that is immensely frustrating at times, and we've all had the arguments. There seems to be this particular type of individual who, I don't know, maybe they're actual bots or AI creatures themselves, who seem to want to defend VAR to the ends of the earth and talk about, well, it's not the machine's fault, it's not the system's fault. Nobody said it was. It is absolutely the way in which these things are being these facilities are being used by humans, and still human error at the end of the day. So how much we've gained, I'm not 100% sure. Goal line technology, great. Yeah, that's definitely in. It's not in. You lost the league by 0.22 millimeters. Okay, whatever. I get it. These kind of things are understandable. We even have Hawkeye technology in Gaelic football, so if the ball goes higher than the already high posts, you can tell whether it's still in between them or not. These things make perfect sense to me. It's when it comes to the whole idea of a goal is scored in open play, and I find myself, and here's my gripe, Lisa Marie, I find myself not being able to have joy in that moment, and you know how much I like a bit of joy. I find myself waiting. If there's anything that's even vaguely dubious in terms of, is that person slightly advanced? Is there somebody else encroaching? Anything at all, unless someone batters the ball in from 40 meters, I can't enjoy it anymore. And I think that is an absolute blight on the game, because I don't know about what you do with football or what football is for you. I think I do know what it is. But for me, it needs to be fun first and foremost. Yes, it's an obsession, but if it's not fun, there's other things I could be doing with my life. And this has sucked a lot of the joy out for me. Do I sound like an old man shakes fist at the sky, Lisa Marie, or can you relate to this?
I absolutely can relate to it, and I mean, I know it has been spoken about, between yourself and Dave and whomever, I think on Raw multiple occasions, that it's not the concept of VAR that you or myself or many people object to. It's the way that is being utilized. It's just, there doesn't seem to be rhyme or reason sometimes to some of the decisions, or what is reviewed and what isn't reviewed. And of course, some of that is going to come down to human error, absolutely. But and again, I was just kind of coming into the more level of involvement with the game when VAR was being introduced and everything else. But to me, it feels like there's just not consistency with it. And again, some of that is going to be, the human aspect of it. But I don't know. It's almost like they decided to teach someone how to interpret it the day before, or an hour before the match started. Okay, here's what you need to look for. And it's just, it can be used a lot, and I think even the first season that it was in place, it was kind of like, okay, it's the first season, but it doesn't really seem to have gotten any better, in my opinion. Or I don't know, anyway, or maybe we're just used to, sometimes you just get used to things being so bad that it seems normal.
That's the problem, right? That is the problem.
Like,
part of
I mean,
worries...
to the point where if we get a VAR decision go our way, it's like, oh my God.
Well, look, if the last 3 years or so have taught us anything, it's that you can become inured to the most awful things, just because that's just how it is now, right? And I wonder, think it's a really good point. Have we become fucking institutionalized, and we just go, oh, VAR, yeah, it's shit.
Yeah.
Like, what are you gonna do? You
The
know,
one
it's-
The one that drives me, I think, the most crazy is the offside line. You know, when the way they draw those lines to
oh,
determine
stop!
whether or
Yeah,
not.
they need to
Oh,
stop.
for the love of God, there's no consistency in that
No,
at
they need,
all,
they
or
need to
that I
stop
can
doing
see.
that.
Not that I'm watching every game, all games, all decisions, but
It
it's
feels
just,
it feels
yeah,
like they're trolling us. It feels like they're
yes,
trolling us because the lines just it makes no sense. You're left to wonder. It just feels like, why are you doing that? Why are you putting that on display for us? Because what you're showing us is definitively not proving anything, and all you've done now is raise the heart rate of several 100,000 people. It just feels. I agree with you. I don't know that is probably, of all of them, that's the worst, especially when you're on minute 3 or 4 or 5 and there's a lad standing around the center circle wondering if he can have a shit celebration for a goal he scored 5 minutes ago. It's just it's the
and it's not just Premier League. I mean, like, we've seen it even in the Champions League. Was it that? Well, of course, I remember it was my fourth child, Harvey Elliott's goal against Ajax. That,
Yeah.
I mean, for the love of God,
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, mag boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
debated that thing for 5 minutes. And it'd be one thing if that goal was going to make the difference between a win or a loss, or in a game or a draw or whatever. But we were up what, 6-1, 6-0. Yeah, we were up by several goals. So that goal was not going to make the difference in anything, whether it was awarded or not, that it needed to be scrutinized that closely. Again, I do understand when there is a little more weight on whether or not that goal is awarded. Absolutely fine. But when it's a case like that where this is going to be, the 7th goal in the game, come on, give me a break. Just award it and move on.
Yeah, well, at least
I'm not just saying that because it was Harvey's goal.
we got that cute father-son moment between.
We did get the cute father-son moment between him and
Does
Mo.
that mean? Does that mean
that outweighs?
Does that mean that if you're Harvey's mother and Moses' father, what's going on here? Why haven't you told us about
no,
this?
you missed the podcast with Nina where Southampton, where I called the Harvey off and Milner on, the father-son substitution. And so they were insinuating something there.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, you did praise his beard live on our show. I mean,
did not praise it. I said that it was potentially the reason why we weren't playing well.
I think you liked it. I'm just putting 2 and 2 together here. I'm clearly making 5. Let's finish
or
with
6 or 7.
Or 6 or 7. Let's finish with your last contribution to our show of grumbling and gripes. What is the topic you want to cover here?
Okay, so this will shed a little bit light on why I dislike Tottenham as a club.
Okay.
Other than Harry Kane. So in the summer of 2017, during the summer tour thing, Tottenham and Man City played here in Nashville, and so we went to the game as a family, my husband and myself and all 3 kids, and we're there in the, hot July Tennessee sun, and at our seats, and then here come to sit next to us 3 or 4 clearly had been drinking, highly obnoxious Tottenham fans.
Okay.
Now, I understand that we are a little more puritanical and conservative about cursing in this country. However, these were Americans, and they're sitting next to my 12-year-old son, at the time 12-year-old, fuck this and fuck that and, every other word. And it was just like, and I mean, my kids weren't the only kids in the immediate vicinity. Okay. There were several children. And it's like, guys, to the point where Paul was uncomfortable sitting next to them. Okay. And there was another couple that were seated like 2 rows in front of us, and there were some empty seats. And they turned around and they said, do your kids want to come sit here? There's no one sitting next to us right now. Obviously if someone comes, we'll have to shift, but would they feel more, and Paul and Mary Kristen, my younger 2, moved down there to sit with complete strangers to put some distance between them and the obnoxious Tottenham fans. So where I'm going with the story is, I understand we're all there to enjoy a game, and and this wasn't even, the match hadn't even started. So it wasn't like, and again, this is it's a summer pre-season match. There was nothing at stake here. Things happen in the heat of things, and you get excited in language and everything else. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're in the midst of children, behave accordingly.
Yeah.
I know I sound like I'm about 105 right now. But it's just, that's the type of thing that, when you and I know there are people who take children even younger. I mean, let's see, if Paul was 12, Mary Kristen would have been like 8, but I know people that take their young children to these matches. And yeah, you can be surrounded by people that are just acting obnoxious. And it's like, what may be a wonderful fan experience for you, you may be giving this child at their first game a horrible experience where they never want to come back. So, yeah. And this is why we don't like Tottenham. Anyway.
Well, I mean, obviously that's
those 3. I remember saying to our friend Alan O'Donoghue, I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Tottenham fans are very nice. Maybe, is it fair for me to let these 3 or 4 morons, color my, impression of Spurs fans? And he goes, no, that was pretty accurate.
The famously tolerant O'Donoghue there.
Yeah.
Do you know, it's quite interesting though, listen to you speak there about that. It's something I've experienced a little bit of myself in terms of, maybe taking kids over to matches and stuff like that. It can be remarkable that even in this day and age, you could find yourself beside a cohort of people who are making the whole experience completely unpleasant for everyone around them. And like you say, it's not about heat of the moment, shouting at a ref or an opposition player who's gone through your lad or whatever. It's just this constant barrage of vulgarity all the time. And I find myself sometimes saying, look, I don't like people policing how you should behave as a supporter in the ground. If you pay for the ticket, I think you should be allowed to do whatever you want to do. And I don't like that kind of shaming, honestly. I will say the ground was fucking quiet today, and I don't like that. I wish it was louder. You run the risk of, it's all these out of towners and all that kind of bullshit conversation. So I never say it anymore. But quiet Anfield is just something I can't abide. But those people have a right to be quiet if they want. It's just a personal preference. But when you have people who are just like beyond the pale, and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about there, because everybody's experienced it, it just really makes the whole experience unpleasant for everybody else around them. And drunkenness is no excuse. And you would like to think that might be something that is erasable from the game, but honestly, I don't think it is. I think you're always going to have those pockets, and I agree with you. It's a perfect one for a list here, because I think most of these things they're all things that we got to put up with. They're eye-rolling things we got to put up with, and yeah, we're not going to be able to change anyone. Of course, all the listeners to the show are beautifully behaved members of the intelligentsia who would never deign to shout obscenities in the vicinity of children. But you'd like to think that maybe just by saying these things out loud, Lisa Marie, maybe we're contributing to something.
We're affecting something. Someone might pause and think.
Someone might pause and think. Oh, who knows? Well, look, I have to say, I'm just very aware of your time, and we've gone over the hour, and I'm by quite a while, because we started late. So I want to let you get back to your Sunday, and I want to wrap it up here. But I have to say, really enjoyed the conversation. It was really a winging it show that we just sort of invented at the last minute, because we were left denuded of our colleagues, and I appreciate you rolling with it tremendously. So thanks again for that. And is there anything you want to sign off with before we wrap up?
No, just don't shout obscenities around children, and
Oh, you're doubling down here. I see.
Just kidding. No. Although, wait a minute, I did have a little quote, and you might appreciate this one.
Okay.
Trevor, here you go. However vast the darkness, we must supply our own light. And you'll appreciate who said this. Stanley Kubrick.
Big Stan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to visit him on his moon base and talk to him about how he faked the moon landings next week. That's just for you, Kopak. That is just for you, Kopak. I hope you're listening, my friend. I'm delighted you finished with a bit of Kubrick. That's fantastic.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, classing up the joint as ever. That was Lisa Marie Hannan. I've been Trev Downey. This is the Anfield Index podcast, and we'll be back for episode 350, right? Next time, am I right? That's kind
350. I mean, there should be like fireworks and champagne.
Absolutely. Considering for 300, I couldn't get any of the originals to be bothered their arse to even join in as contributors. I don't think 350 is going to cut much mustard, but we will attempt to bring you another decent show, and we'll hopefully have some of our fallen comrades back in the loop at that stage. Until then, mind yourself, take care, keep an eye on all things World Cup if that's your bag. Hope you're enjoying it, and if not, we'll be here to talk to you about something Reds related at least on the next one.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.